All right, so Zedek, yeah, the floor is yours. I'm sure the guys that are watching us already, they've attended one of your sessions in the past on Discord. So we are currently moving the stream here, right, to YouTube. So we can always have a copy even after the workshop. Okay. So Zedek is going to be, handling the session for today, and feel free to ask your questions in the chat if you feel lost or confused at any point in time. Okay. Yeah, Zedek, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Maf. Hello, guys. Good evening to our Friday's workshop as usual. In the last session we had, we built a simple to-do application. Today we will be working on a image slider. Let me share my second screen. So, okay, let's see what we're going to be building. So basically, let me pull up my Excalibur. So we'll try to sketch out something. So in today's session, we're going to build a very simple image slider. We intend to have the slider look like this, maybe just the screen which contains the images, and then we could have a button here where we could click to go to the next image. So here we could have next. That's not visible enough. Let me take that off. Okay, we're going to have a button here. We're going to have the next um, button, and then we could have a previous button here, so that when you click on the next button, the next image displays. Same applies for the previous. So basically, in today's session, we're just going to try to implement something like as basic as this, using HTML and CSS as usual. So I'll pull up my VS Code, and then as usual, we're going to build from scratch, right? And let me bring up my blank VS Code. Okay, just a moment. Great. Yeah, I want to believe you can see my screen. If you can see my screen, please drop a message in the chat. For those of us streaming on YouTube, I can see your messages in the chat. Welcome, Legion Knight, ODBs. Welcome, guys. So if you can see my screen, can you drop a message in the chat? I'm assuming you can see my screen. So let me just give you a second one. Okay. I want to assume you guys can see my screen. Okay, great. All right, so here we have a, kindly could you please zoom in a little bit? Okay, I've actually not written anything yet. So okay, let me straight this. I don't know if you can see this. Yes, you can. Okay, great. Thank you very much for the feedback. All right, so as usual, we're going to create our basic files. So for the HTML file, we could just drop a file here called this guy index.html. HTML. Sorry, this is HTML. Then we're going to have another file where we'll have the styles.css. Here we're going to be writing all our CSS. Then we'll have another file called this guy script. Let's call this script.js. This will be writing our JavaScript code. Great. All right. So for the HTML, and in order to save time, I just generated a boilerplate that maybe we could just easily make use of it. There's nothing big about it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is just it. All right. So we have the doc declaration. This is the head tag, the body tag. So in the head tag, we just have the CSS file included. This is the CSS file. And then the title section will just have this image slider. Then in the body section, in the body section, we just have a single div. You can see this is a single div with a class name of slider, right? And then we have an image tag. This is an image tag with an ID of slider image. But then the SRC now we have kept it empty because we want to use JavaScript to automatically fill in the SRC, right? Okay, someone is saying, can you please zoom your screen? All right, let me try again. Is this good enough? They like this is good enough. Can you drop a message? Right. So then we have two buttons. We have the previous
Good
button,
enough.
and then we have the next button.
This is good enough, Sadiq.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amaka. Right. So we just have a single div. Inside the div, we have an image tag, and then we have two buttons, the previous and then the next button. Then below here on line 20, we just added a script file. We've been doing this, right? So now in the CSS file, let me drop the declaration I have for the CSS. Like I said, it's no biggie, it's just a basic styling. So we have this. So now all what we did here, this is the body section, right? We only changed the font family, we gave it a margin of 0, a padding of 0. Let me just go ahead and run this file so we can take a look at how this looks. So I'm using the live server to run the file. So this is just it. Now you can see that the image is blank. We just have this previous button. Let me comment the CSS one after the other so you get to understand what each of them is trying to do. So let me select all of these guys and comment it out. So the body section, we only have, well, we just set the margin to 0, the padding to 0, display of flex. You already know what flex does. We've been using this in our previous sessions. Justify center, align center, and then we are setting the height of this to be 100 d height. Just it shouldn't be, it should take the full height of the screen basically, right? So now you see without the style, you can see where the buttons are positioned, right? So remember dot slider. What was dot slider? Dot slider is the name of the container div. It's a class. Remember, like we said in the previous section, for classes to call your class, you begin with a dot, right? Dot slider. So now, let me bring this guy down here. So this style is basically for the container div, which is the slider, right? We just give it the position of relative. Want it to have a width of 600 pixels, a height of 400 pixels, and then an overflow that's anything outside of this guy should be hidden, right? Okay, then the next CSS declaration we have is the IMG. The IMG, this is just for the image. Let's go back and see what's IMG. This is IMG, the image tag, right? So for the image tag, we are saying, okay, it should take a width of 100%. 100 to what? The container itself is 600 pixels. So if we are saying this guy should take 100%, it means it should take the full width of this container and then the full height of this container. And then we're setting an object fit cover, right? To make it display properly. So that's just for the image. So the next declaration here we have is the button, right? Let me put this here. So where can we find the button? Now, if you check, these are the two buttons we have: the previous button and then the next button. The previous button has an ID of prev btn, next has a next btn. So we are saying that all the buttons btn, all the button tag should take position of absolute top 50%. That's from the top to this place, 50% of the screen. Then the transformational white, padding, border, none, and then this is just the background of the button. Then the text color of the button should be white, right? So now we went ahead to now declare in a style for each of these individual buttons, right? Then we have the previous button. So for the previous button, we're only saying that it should stay at the left side. This is the left side. Then for the next button, it should stay to the right side. I want to believe this is very clear enough. So this is just all what we have for the CSS. Very simple and straightforward. Then the HTML, nothing much, very simple and straightforward. So this is where we're going to be doing most of the work, right? The JavaScript. So for the script tag, as usual, first thing we do is we usually target the entire document, right? Using an event listener. And we say the name of that event listener in the last session is DOM content loader, right? So we'll come to this place and say, okay, let's target the entire document. When this document is loaded on the browser, when it is ready, that's when we want to start executing the JavaScript code. So we can come here and say, okay, document dot we want to add an event listener, right? So this takes two parameters. The first parameter is the name of the event, comma, followed by the next parameter is the function that you want to execute when this event happens, right? So the event we want to listen to here is the DOM content loaded. So when the DOM contents are loaded, we want to now trigger this function. So remember, the event listener takes two parameters: the event you want to listen to, and then the function you want to call when this event occurs, right? So in between this curly bracelet, that's where we're now going to start writing our conditions. So as we've been doing in our previous section, first thing is we're going to target this image slider, right? This image slider, and it has an ID name called image slider. That's we're targeting the image itself. So come here and say, okay, give it const. You can call this image slider image. To fetch it, as usual, we can call that document. This is document dot get element by ID, right? So what's the name of the ID? This is a slider image, right? Coming from here. The name of the ID is slider image. Okay. So now we have gotten that guy. Let's be sure we have gotten this guy, right? So we can even check to be sure that we've even gotten a hold of that guy. Let's try to put it console log it and see console.log slider image. So let me refresh this guy and then check my console to see. Let me increase the width of this one. Sorry. Yeah, great. All right, let me check the console. See. Yeah, you can see this is it, right? In the console. Let me increase. Yeah, you can see this is it in the console. To show that here we actually got a hold of it. So let's go back and pick the other ones too. So now we have our image slider. That's the image, right? Then the next thing we also need on this screen is we need these two buttons so that we can put an event on these two buttons. So to grab these two buttons, we can come back here and continue. We can call this const. That's for the previous button. Now we can see previous btn is going to be equal to document dot get element by id. So what's the ID of this previous button? Let's come and check previous button. The ID name is prev-btn. Bring this guy here. All right, we have the button. Sorry. Put this in quotation, in quote. That's the previous button. We have the previous button now. Let's just duplicate this guy and change this one to next button. What's the name of the ID for the next button? We'll come and check. It's here. We called it next-btn. Refresh it. Come and populate it here. This is next-btn. So now I've gotten a hold of this image tag, this button element, and then this button element as well in our JavaScript, right? So now we have literally everything we need. So the next thing to do is, let's remember this is an image slider, so we need to have the images we want to be displaying, right? So let's generate an array. We can create an array of images. Let's call this const images. So you can set this to be an array of strings, right? So now, because we don't have images locally on in this we don't have images stored in this folder. For the sake of this session, we can just quickly fetch images online. Let's check the site and just copy some image URLs and use on Splash. There are a whole lot of these guys out there. Yeah, we could just get this image too. Okay, yeah, this image. Let's copy. Let's copy image address. We copied it. We now put it in our array in quotes. We paste the URL to that image. Let's get another image. At least let's get two more. Okay, let's pick this guy too. So let's copy image address. Drop it here. Let's get one more image. I think this can do. Let's copy image address. And then we drop it in here. Do code, paste it inside. Yeah, I think that's all for now. You can populate as many images as possible, right? So, but for now, we'll just have these three images that we want to display here, right? So what I'm going to do next, and remember we have that image tag stored here, and then these two buttons. So we want to automatically send these individual images into the image slider, right? So to do that, we want to begin now. When you're working with arrays, right, an array has indexes, right? So the first item has an index value of 0. The next item has an index value of 1. So what I'm saying, the first item is 0, the next item is 1, the next followed by 2, right? So this has an index of 0, 1, 2. So the counting, basically what I want you to take home at the end of the day, is the counting starts from 0. It doesn't start from 1 for arrays, right? It starts from 0. So we can set our current index. We will say, okay, let our current index to be equal to 0. So we have our current index to be equal to 0. Now let's display the first image. By default, the first image should be the one displaying in our browser, right? So we can call this slider image. Remember what slider image is, right? This slider image, and slider image is this tag. We use JavaScript to fetch it, right? So we can say, okay, slider image dot src. That's we are trying to target this src now and populate it. So dot src is equal to images. Remember, these are all our images. So we want to pick the first one, and the first one is now, remember to say the first one has an index of 0, right? 0. We have already set this variable. Now we can see the first image is displaying. Assuming we wanted to have the second one to be the image displaying, we can change this guy from 0 to 1. It's loading. You know, these images are fetched from a certain URL, right? That's why it's taking some time to load up. Yeah, you can see, right? This is the second image. So as we want the default image to be the last one, which has the index of 2, it means we're changing this guy now to 2. then we have this image here, right? But we want to start from the beginning, right? So let's keep it at 0. So this is the first image, right? So now we have successfully set a default display image. So the next thing is we want to put an event to this button. So when you click on this button, the next image should display. And when you click on this the previous image that was displaying should be the one showing, right? So we can now go down one step further and write. Want to set an event listener to this button, right? So the next button, this is our next button. So we can come here and call the next button dot. We are adding an event listener to it. Remember, like I said when we began the section, this event listener takes two parameters, right? The first parameter is the event you want to listen to. The second parameter is the function you want to run, right? So we can call this function. We can call this function. This is the function we want to run. So which event we want to listen to? We want to listen to a click event. Click event. So when you click this button, this function should be triggered. Let me just put an alert of hi here. Let's see. So now let's say I click on the next button. You can see hi is displaying. Where is the hi coming from? It's coming from this function that's triggered. But that's not what we want to do, right? Basically, what we want to do is when you click on this button, we want to add 1 to this index. That's go to the next image, right? So all what we're trying to do is when you click on that next button, what should happen is we want to reset the value of current index. This current index, we want to give it a new value, right? So current index, we can say okay, should be equal to the previous value of current index plus 1. So if current index was 0, so the next value of current index should be 0 plus 1, right? So let's click next. Okay, let me load this. Okay, let's add few lines here to run a proper check. Let me close this guy. So we can say go further and say that we can check the modulus. Let me try checking the modulus. We can do images dot length Okay, yeah, let's keep it simple. Then I'll still implement that, but let's try and keep it simple. So now we have increased the index. So the initial value of this was 0. We now said plus 1. So which means the new value is going to be plus 1, right? So what we're going to do next is to set the image value of the image slider to be equal to the current index. I don't know if you get that part. Let me take it again. So we have this event listener on the next button. When you click on the next button, it triggers this function. What this function is doing is it is taking the current value of the index, which is set to be 0, and then adding 1 to it, right? So now at this point, our current index is no longer 0, but it is now 1. This is because it's 0 plus 1, so now 1, right? So now for the image itself, the SRC, that's the image that will be in the SRC, we are now fetching images 1, no longer images 0, right? So let's try click and check. So next, can see now it has changed. Next, you see it has changed, right? So this works the same for the previous. This is going to work the same for the previous button, right? So for the previous button, all what we're doing is we are just subtracting 1 from that current value. So we could remember this takes the event you want to listen to and then the function that you want to execute when that event happens. So we are still going to do the same thing here. We are doing the same thing here, but just that this time around, we are now saying, okay, minus, sorry, We are now saying -1, right? So this is our default image. So if I click next, 1 was added to the current value, giving us the next image. If I click next, it was added. So if I now click previous, it's going to be the current value -1, then to take us to the previous image. So if I click, see it's going back, went back. If I click next, current value +1, current value +1, previous -1. So this is just, you can actually do a lot of things, other checks with this function. You can also check to be sure that, okay, you are on the last image in the array. You can check to be sure that you are on the first image in the array. You can do things like, okay, if you are currently on the first image in the array, this button should be disabled. If you're on the last image in the array, this button should be disabled. What should be active is this button. So you can do a lot, and you can exploit this function. You can do a whole lot of things, right? So like I always tell you, this is just to give you heads up on what to do. You can go ahead to explore this function. In fact, you can even extract this function out of this event listener as a standalone function, right? That you can fetch this guy out. You can call this guy, unless you can come down here and give it a name const previous. You can call this previous handler is equal to, let me use an arrow function. Sorry. Paste all of this. We don't need this. So now we can call this function when you click the next button. So click followed by the function. So this is the next. Let's check. Okay, we have to trigger the function here. Okay, let's try. Load this. A trunk. Okay, let me just give it a normal function. Let's go the normal function route. Okay, let me call this function previous handler. Okay, so this is function previous. Oh, this should be previous. This should be next handler. Function next handler. So it's next handler. Let's click. See, this still works. Click. So the same applies for this guy. You can still extract this function out, right? And then just call the name of the function there. You can see this is the next button. Add an event listener. When you click, a function should be called. Where's the function? This is the function that should be called. So basically, this is just the key fundamentals you need to understand when building an image slider with your core HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So that was quite short, right? So I don't know if anyone has any question. Feel free to drop it in the chat section. And then also from your own end, do well to build on this thing and make your functions more robust. Try to perform all these checks. And should in case you encounter any blocker, you have the Discord server. You can drop a message there, tag Mav, you can tag me, tag any of the moderators, and there'll be someone there to attend to you. So that's basically it for today's workshop. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat section. Legionite, are you still there? Precious, Odibaz, Leila. If you have any questions, drop it in the chat. I'm looking at the chat at the moment. Any question? Okay, someone is asking, how can you make it automatic? By automatic, I want to agree, you mean let these images be automatically sliding, right? All what you do is just to set a timer that, okay, after so seconds, let's say maybe after 1 second, increase this thing to 1. Mind you, this is the index, right? Increase this thing to 1 and then set the current, the new index here, and then assign it to SRC. That's just it. Can have a set timer that after every 1 second, increase this thing, do +1, and then add or populate the image SRC. So when it gets to the last one, then after every second, do -1. So it's just to perform a check that when you're not on the first, okay, when you're on the first one, when you're on the first image, after 1 second, automatically do +1 to this guy and then set the SRC. After every second, you just keep doing that, right? But when you get to the last image, then okay, do -1 and then keep going back. Then automatically it will be rotating. Hope I was able to answer your question, Odibas. Okay. Okay, Legionite here, I have no question. Leila say all good. All right, that's great. Taiwo saying, can you try it? Try the auto slider, or is that what you saying? Okay, Odiba says all good. Thanks, welcome. Yeah, so basically that's it, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the session. Please, if you did, kindly drop a message in the chat. If you have any recommendations regarding the mode of instruction, please still drop. The feedbacks are really important so that we'll know how best to structure the lessons. So thank you so much, guys. Hello, Amaka, is still there?
Yes, Zadik, I'm here.
Okay, so that's basically it for today's session.
All right. So I think if that's it, if there are questions or there are no questions, I can see. No, I have no questions. I love this. Slide. Okay, so you have questions here. I will just display them on the screen so that you can pick it from here.
Okay, I was able to attend to most of them. Okay, yeah, can it update automatically? What do you mean by updating automatically? Do you mean updating this image this automatically? Remember, we are the ones that got these images. You're the one that decide the image you want to impute in your slideshow, right? Or do you mean does this move automatically? If that's your question, I think I answered that. So to achieve that, like I said earlier, all what you need to do is just set a timer, right? That, okay, after every 1 second, I want to add this current index. I want to do a plus one, and then set the image SRC to this new images index. So, but when you get to the last one, right, check, is this the last image in the array? If the answer is yes, then this time around, do -1 automatically and go back to the previous images. I believe that was clear enough. If it wasn't, please drop a message. Please, are we using the previous? Okay, how do we go about using the arrows inside of previous next? Okay, you mean arrows instead of previous and next. Remember, these are HTML. This is the button, right? So assuming I had an arrow, all what you need to do is, let's say, assuming the arrow was an image, all what you need to do is just insert it here. Look, I can even change this thing to the greater than sign on my key. Okay, this is previous, so this is less than sign. You can see it here, right? For the greater, could do something like this. This is greater, and then for the less than, can do something like less than, you can do something like this. Sorry, it's still loading up. Yeah, you can see them, right? So these are arrows now. So should in case you had an image, a specific kind of image you want to use, all what you need is just fix it here, right? That's just it. Or I can see have that arrow and then see have a for previous. I can see have this guy and then see have a next. So you can see both of them combined. Okay, let me put this before the symbol. Yeah, so that was just it. Okay, any other question? Okay, Tai was saying, can we try the automatic slider? We just have less than 28 minutes. Okay, maybe what will happen is let's do that as we'll do that in our next workshop because of time factor, right? But like I said, it's just a very simple thing. All what you need to do is set a timer and then be automatically increasing it. The timer runs automatically after 1 second. This should happen, this should happen. But meanwhile, you're performing a check to be sure that you have not exceeded the number of images. For this one we didn't even perform any check, right? So just a very basic and simple illustration. The whole essence of the workshop is to give you good foundations to build on, right? So you can also try that out, and then if you have questions, feel free to drop on the Discord server and tag me. I can also attend to them. Or you can tag Mr. Marv. He will be very glad attending to your questions. So any other question? Okay.
There are no other questions here. I think that's all.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amaka.
All right. Thank you so much, Zadik. So, guys, I believe you learned a lot. You can always come back and watch this video. It will be on the YouTube channel. So, I think that's all for tonight. If you have more questions, you can always drop it on Discord or the WhatsApp group, and someone will attend to you. So, with that said, have a lovely night, everyone. Morning, afternoon, evening. See you on Monday. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right.